Alright guys, welcome back to the series, and today is finally the day that we go over assemblies and the related features. So that's going to be pretty awesome, and I'm actually going to be showing you how I made this assembly that I used for a drawing. So that'll be pretty cool, because you'll be able to see how I kind of did that. So pretty much, first of all, to get started, all we need to do really is open a new assembly, and main thing to note in difference is that we're going to be operating in a new window. This assembly window here, it's different than the part, and as you will see, a lot of the toolbars will change up here and down here with different features which are more relevant to actually assembling things together how you want. So to get started, we're going to go close. Actually, no, we need this. I'm just going to close that for now. But so, okay, whenever you open up an assembly for the first time, you're just pretty much going to see a blank window like this, and it's going to prompt you to begin the assembly by importing a part to kind of start the assembly. Depending on what you want to do, the order that which you import things might not matter, but say if you know you want one part fixed to the ground and you know that's where you want to start, then I would start with that part essentially, because then you can fix that part in the assembly space here and keep it from moving it around or rotating with the rest of the features as you add them to it. So that can be pretty helpful, and that's actually what I'm going to do. So I'm actually just going to take, I need these to be much bigger for me. Alright, there we go, cool. So I'm actually going to take my engine section and begin that at the bottom. So essentially what happens is when you pick a part that you want to place for the first time, if you don't click into the window, you will actually be able to drop it anywhere you want in the window. And something really cool that is really helpful for after a while, if you have a bunch of parts and you need to orient a part a certain way and it doesn't come out the right way here, what you can actually do is in the lower left hand corner you see an XYZ rotation component. You can rotate by 90 degrees just by pressing these buttons, and you can actually edit the amount that it changes by on each click. So if you know if you need this part to be flipped 90 degrees to the right or to the left, you can just do it like that and then place it in, and you'll be all set. So that's a cool little helpful way to kind of get parts in the orientation that you want. So yeah, one thing to note, so once it's in the very first part, whenever it's in your assembly window, it's going to be fixed, or it should be, that's the thing. Let's see if it is. Huh, it's not telling me. Alright, cool. So one thing that I want to mention is that this is actually a subassembly. So it's so right now this is a subassembly within a subassembly, and that's going to be very common. You're not going to want to make one huge assembly with everything. You're going to want to do smaller subassemblies and sections and then put them together in an assembly itself. It'll make your life way easier, and in case if something goes wrong or you change one thing, it won't fail everything together. So that's a really nice tip, and it actually allows you to edit each individual component. So say if I wanted to hide the engine part here, I could just go in here into the drop down tree over here, suppress or change transparency. And so that can be really useful for highlighting or actually removing certain components that you don't want anymore, even though it's still within this subassembly. Alright, sorry, so that was kind of a extra piece of information that you needed. Oh yeah, so it is fixed. Yeah, so selected component is fixed. So essentially what this means is that this can't move from wherever I placed it. So if I want to move it, I'm going to go over here, right click on the subassembly or the part, and I'm going to go down here to float. So then that allows me to move this wherever I want and actually mate it to whatever surface I want. So I'm actually going to start by mating the bottom surface of this engine onto the top surface of this assembly, so then it'll give me a really good reference point and I'll be able to know exactly where it is, and then I'm going to later match up the planes to the one of the drawing, so then that I know that the coordinate axis of the drawing represents what I want in the part. So that's gonna be really useful. It's not necessary, but it's good to kind of set yourself up. So then in your drawings, your isographic views and your isometric drawings and all that, they line up how they should, and they won't be like skewed off axis. So essentially, to go ahead and mate two things is mating is going to be a really big thing, and you're going to use this a lot. And that's found up here in the taskbar next to insert component. Insert component is how you bring in more parts to mate and connect. But for right now, we're going to mate the bottom of this to the top surface there. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go, oops, I need to show this guy. Select him, mate, and mate. Alright, so that means this guy is now on the top surface, and he can slide along the top surface, which is fine. I don't really, that's fine. And I'm going to just lock it into place. So now it can't move. So now, if I want to add more parts to this up top here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is insert component here, and it's going to open up your last opened document or folder. So I already have everything in here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick my tanks. Oh, I need this, then I'm going to want this. Yeah. And you can select multiple components just by holding control. And then what happens is it'll bring in each of the components one by one. And then whenever you click, and depending if you have different configurations, you'll be able to select which version you want. So as you can see, I have different versions of the tank, one with flanges for connecting pipes to, and one not. So then you can select which one you want. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the locks. And then this guy is this? I have many different versions of this. Oh, here we go. So we're going to go, what is default? Default is not what I want. So if you import a part and it's not the configuration you want, you can always quickly change it just by going to right-clicking on the part, and then there should be a drop-down menu if you have configurations, and then from here you can pick which one you want instead. So I'm going to go tank adapter because this is the one that's in between the two tanks. So from here I'm going to mate everything together, and you do that with the mate tool up here, and it's actually really intuitive, I guess is the word, and it'll pretty much do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So say if you want to get these aligned up, these tubes aligned up concentrically, you can just click that, and it will do that for you. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side in the window, it has a concentric clicked. Now, you can click other things or other tool properties, I guess these features, and it'll give you different mating options, or it'll give you different ways of putting it together according to whatever you picked over here. So just keep an eye out for this. Concentric is what I want because I want them aligned radially, and then I want, and then another thing is you can lock the rotation so they can't spin independently, which I don't want, so I'm gonna lock that. And it's cool is because then you also have these other features down here where you can set a degree offset. So if you have a face here and you know you want a part welded or something at a 45-degree angle, you can do that right here, and it'll put the two faces 45 degrees apart, which is really cool. And then there's also a distance feature, so if you know if two things need to be X inches apart, you can just specify that there and it'll put them apart. But for now I'm going to check that, and then I'm going to, and what sometimes will happen is that things will get pulled together or into each other, so just make sure you have everything how you want. And then now I'm going to go ahead and I want this tank dome to lay against this surface essentially, or that top surface. So I'm just going to click those two together, and now they are connected. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do the same for down here. And yeah, that's pretty much how you use the, are you kidding me? That's pretty much how you use the mate feature. It's pretty straightforward, as I said before, and there are plenty of more complicated and I guess mechanical limitations and mechanical movements definitions that you can add later. But for right now, I would guess the kind of the basic is just you're going to use most of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to be using just a standard mates to kind of define how things come together. And let me just finish this up real quick. I really am going to need to edit some hotkeys. Alright, well, let me add a few more things. So if you ever need to continue adding parts and you don't have that window anymore, you're always up here, insert components, and I'm actually going to need another one of these. I'm going to need 2 more of those. And another way to choose configuration while importing is you can actually, in your insert component window, you can actually choose your configuration through this drop down. And I'm going to want to have thrust to tank adapter, which is this guy. And as you can see, this guy turned out, I think he turned out, was this the right one? Yeah, I guess. Alright, cool. So then one thing is if you import a part and you realize after you imported it that it is in the wrong orientation, you can always edit orientation by right-clicking your part, and you're going to want to go scroll down to Move with Triad. Move with Triad, you'll be able to pitch it, yaw it, roll it, whatever you need to, and it'll tell you, and you can always transpose it to or translate it in along XYZ axis, or you can actually grab on the inside and then put it wherever you want. But I actually want it 90 degrees, so I'm just going to Control Z all that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So that's just another way to move stuff, which is really cool. And there's also a move component and rotate component up here in the top window. But a lot of the times you're probably just going to end up using the move with triad. It's much easier because here you have to define axes to move it around or parts to move around. So this is useful, but most of the time I'll just use the move with triad. So let me mate this guy, this guy. What is your problem with going inside things? Alright. And I am aware that this thrust structure is lacking. It is just a placeholder, same with the engine. I hope to God our engine does not look like this. That'll be terrible. And yeah, this is an adapted, this is from an old model that I just was too lazy to redo. So we're just going to mate, we're just going to call this a mate right here. This line, this edge to this surface. And we're going to call it a day. At least for that part. And then I'm going to insert a few more components. And then I'm actually going to go quickly through how to create the bill of materials that I used in the other drawing. So let me just finish this up real quick. I'm not going to put usually we have a helium tank up here with another adapter, but I'm just going to skip that for now. And if you want to import multiple parts at a time without having to go back and forth through insert component, you can actually pin this toolbar here, and then you can click twice or however many times you want, and it'll keep open the window you want, or the import window, sorry. And now I'm here, so here you can see me using that XYZ to get in the right orientation, or at least roughly. And from here I'm just gonna mate everything together. Oops. Yeah, and I would recommend getting hotkeys, assigning them to places you'll actually use, and remembering to use them, because even I forget to use them a lot of the times, and it really hinders my speed. Yeah, these aren't the right sections, but I just want to show you the bill of materials. No, come on. My sir, are supposed to go. Okay, and if you want to edit a mate, so I probably have a mate on here that I don't want, or I have a duplicate. So to get rid of them, or to view the mates currently on a part, you right click on the part and you go scroll to view mates, and this will show you any and all mates for a specific part. You can see all your mates that you made in your assembly over here on the left hand side. There's a little tab with everything, and it'll highlight where exactly that mate is and what it is. So that's a really quick way to identify where something is, and if you have a problem with a mate, or if you change a part, it'll usually pop up with a warning. It'll fail your part, and usually it'll be something with a mate. So just open up your little tab down here. You'll see a little caution sign or a little X. Just identify that mate, fix whatever the problem is, and everything should go away, and you'll be fine. Alright, so let's say that this guy is good to go, and we want to make a bill of materials. So to do that and get ready for, say, either manufacturing or for a drawing or anything. You know what, I'm not going to save this. I have too many files already. But okay, so to do that, what you're going to want to do is there's actually a big old button that says bill of materials right here. And what you can do is just click on it, and what you're going to want to do is essentially just check here if you want parts only and indented top level. Usually I just do parts only, and after that you can check display all configurations of the same part as one item, display configurations with the same name as one item, blah blah blah. Since I have lots of configurations and I use configurations a lot, I always identify as configurations being separate parts, so that's why I have this checked. Display configurations of the same part as separate items, and it'll tell you the items to start at what number, and where to end, or like what the increment is, and yeah, that's kind of some basic overview, but most of the time you can just skip through all those options and just hit OK. What you're going to want to do is it'll assign it to a view, or if you're not in a view, like a front, side, right, or top, and you're somewhere like an isometric or something like that, you're going to have to define a plane to put this on, but it'll do it all automatically for you. All you have to do is say yes. So once you do that, it actually will show you, it actually links these parts to the table, which is really cool, because as you can see, as I click these different parts, it actually highlights different sections on the table, and it'll tell you the quantity of them as well. And if you have a description up here in the properties, right here, it'll actually import that into here. Or if you have a description in your configuration, well, actually no, this won't. This is for drawings. Sorry, this comments is for drawings. Whatever you type in here will pop into drawings. You will have to go. When you can create a configuration, you can add a description to it, and if you do that, it'll pop up into here. But since I don't have any, and I usually include a description because that's just too much text, I usually delete this table or that column. So you just go right-click on it, right-click on the column you want, and hit delete column, and from there, you have your table essentially. And what's really cool is from here you can edit your name. So say if you don't want this called the engine connector, but you want to refer to it as, say, the engine section, you can go ahead, change that, and it's still linked to this part. As you can see, I renamed it, and I can even change the item number and it'll still be linked to that part. So that's really useful, and that'll really help your life out when creating drawings or manufacturing plans or anything like that. Because in assemblies here, using your toolbox, add-ins, yeah, your toolbox here, which I don't have enabled right now. You can actually input, so if you know you're going to use 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch bolts, and you have all the holes, you can place all those using this toolbox assembly, or this toolbox feature right here in SolidWorks. And it'll actually tell you the description of the bolts, the nut, what kind of threading count, all that information, and it'll keep track of how many you need as well. So that's a really useful way. Instead of having to go around and count the bolt holes, you can actually import bolts into it and run analysis on those. But I'd say as an overall, that's kind of a good place to start with assemblies. Now there is a whole lot more with assemblies, because assemblies is kind of where the magic happens in SolidWorks. You're going to run a lot of your simulations in here. You're going to have routings, you're going to have tubings, you can do insane stuff. And I'll try to be going over a lot of those as soon as I can, but it takes a long time to do those kind of things, so we will see if we can get to those sooner rather than later. But for now, as an introduction into the SolidWorks assembly, this is a pretty good start. And some things just to kind of remember is that most of your time you're going to be spent over here inserting, mating, and if you have certain patterns, you can always insert components pattern-wise, which is really nice. And then you got your feature over here where you can hide, suppress, or change things if you don't want them shown. And you can actually edit these as well, which is really nice. But yeah, that's it, kind of it for now. So I'll see you guys, and hopefully I'll be doing I'm either going to be doing an assembly FEA soon, or I'm going to do a pressure vessel design, how to design one, how to test it, and then how to add routing to it, because I feel that might be really, really useful. And then I'm working on learning how to do a simulation for finding out thermal heating due to atmospheric drag on the nose cone. So once I figure out how to do that, I will share that with you guys as well. Alright, see ya. Have a good one.